Hey, welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you're doing well. So I was scouring the internet looking at some of the recent watches that have been released by some of the major players, and I came across the Q Timex, which was released by Timex, and I thought I would give you my initial opinions on the watch. But before we get into that, and if you haven't already, and I say it every video, like this video and subscribe to our channel, that'd be great. Comment below that you did that. Let's see what happens if I get a couple more comments on the videos. Maybe I'll hit the algorithm a little bit better. So back in the 1970s, obviously the quartz movement was taking over, and Seiko was leading the way with this movement that really shook the watch industry, as you already know. In the 1970s, watch companies needed to innovate in order to stay relevant and also to sell watches to stay alive. Now, Timex obviously needed to do something in order to continue with these trends, and this was when Timex was still owned by a United States owner. And in 1972, they decided to release the Q Timex. This is really typical 1970s. The case was a little bit more squared, off, and it had beveled edges. It measured 38 millimeters in diameter. The bezel was red and blue, which is obviously reminiscent of the Rolex GMT-Master bezel. The bracelet was a stainless steel bracelet, and it was almost in this like woven pattern, which was so typical of 1970s watches. It really brings you back to that time period. And the case back had a screw-in battery hatch, which is obviously the way in which batteries were changed when that time came about. The dial was this navy blue, and obviously had a little bit of water resistance, and so that was released in 1972, and Timex decided to release that exact watch with all of the exact same specifications in their new Q Timex. It looks exactly the same. It's got the red and blue bezel. It has that squared off case. Take the 1972 version, put it in today, 2019, and make it run off of the Seiko Movement PC33, and then you have exactly what Timex has released. This watch retails for $179, and it's not in any limited amounts, so you can basically get it if you want it. I think this is another example of a watch company that is taking things that were successful in the past and bringing it into the present, which I mean, it works. It ultimately works for a lot of different companies. If they bring something from the past and bring it to the present, they must have confidence in the fact that it will be desired today. I will say though, and I've said this in a couple other videos, I think it is a little bit of a lack of innovation, or lack of innovation and imagination from Timex as to not innovate and create something cool that is representative of today's time period. They're really kind of resting on their laurels and not moving the watch industry forward. However, that is a separate discussion, and let's just focus on this watch. Obviously, 38 millimeters, it's going to sit really nicely on your wrist. I actually really like when cases are squared because they actually fit a whole lot better. I had an Omega reference 1022 that I thought it was like 35 millimeters, but it sat on my wrist so perfectly. Maybe it's just my wrist, something like that, but it was a really great shape. So cool watch. I mean, it's a very basic kind of affordable every man's watch, but I think that's what Timex stands for. It's always been affordable. Even back in the 1970s, and I think this is another rendition of the fact that they're kind of appealing to the mass market. When you're buying Timex, you're also getting great heritage and a reputation that kind of stamps that watch as being relevant. Also, the fact that it was successful back in the 1970s gives you that assurance that it's going to be a great watch now. Obviously, if you're going to understand the history of that watch, you're almost a vintage enthusiast who's trying to find something a little bit more modern. This is the perfect watch for that to happen. I think it's a cool design. I think it fits in the modern day. Like I said, I think the shape of the case is definitely relevant with today's watches. If you look at things like the AP Royal Oak, they have a little bit more of a squared case, which are obviously super hot right now. I mentioned the Omega 1022, so case-wise, it's super relevant and fits in with the modern day today. I think the blue and red bezel is also super hot right now. Obviously, we saw Rolex come out with a white gold on a Jubilee GMT Master. We're seeing Tag Heuer come out with a blue and red bezel. So blue and red bezels are pretty hot right now. Perhaps they're one could say there's one way of looking at it as, yes, they are, you know, paying homage to what they created in the 1970s. It is relevant to what is popular right now. You could also look at it as, this is super boring. Why are they following everything? Why are they following companies and not creating their own thing? There's two ways of looking at it. You can make up your decision on which way you would follow. But initial thoughts on the Q Timex. I think it's a cool watch. I think it's cool that they're paying homage to their heritage. I think if you purchase this watch, you'll be super happy, especially for $179. It is a quartz movement, so you're gonna have a lot of longevity with that watch, and yeah, you can't really go wrong. I think the Timex did a great job with keeping it true to its original design. They even have the screw-in battery hatch, so you really are being transported back to the 1970s. So yeah, I'm glad that they stuck with the original design. I know that a lot of times companies, they create the same watch, but they change certain design elements and it kind of shifts it to something that perhaps people don't really like. But yeah, if you have $179 and you're interested in buying something that can be worn for every day, definitely consider the Q Timex. So if you've made it this far and you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. We create videos about watches and all types of topics. If you go and look at our video archives, you're going to see many topics ranging from, you know, MB&F reviews to auction results, all that kind of stuff. So check us out and hit that subscribe button. It's a free, all you have to do is press it, that's it. And while you're kind of pressing things, hit that like button, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day.